my goodness. Hello, USC. Oh my goodness. Andrew is having a good night. I'm having a great night because we're here with you on the No Cap Space post-game show presented by Home Field, where you can use code NOCAP15 to get 15% off your first purchase. Get ready for March Madness. Get you a good hat. Get you a good shirt. Do what you got to do, man. Get ready because it's time. And speaking of being ready for the time, Andrew, I'm not sure if anybody's more ready right now in the entire nation than the USC Trojans for postseason basketball. I'll let you call the ISO. I know you're kind of in and out here tonight.
Dog, just say I've been drinking.
Look,
it's
okay.
It's
I was,
he's been drinking. We got the homie Liam. Our wives are out partying tonight, so we're at home watching women's basketball. Is God?
Hell yeah! Hell yeah!
We're spreading.
Hell yeah!
This is missionary. This is the shit that the missionaries.
Hell yeah! That's the No Cap Space way. Andrew, give us your dunk ISO then. What is the thoughts?
So first and foremost, support your National Park Service. Second of all right. This is exactly what my concern was with UCLA. When I wrote it out in our monthly mailbag, I had it in the podcast for our paid tiered subscribers. The concern that I have with UCLA is what the coaches in the Pac-12 used to call fourth quarter Corey. And it wasn't necessarily fourth quarter Corey the way it's been in past years. But there's been a concern with UCLA, with that coaching staff, that they have the goods when it matters the most. And it is very clear that USC has, if not a coach, a player that shows up when the lights are the brightest and performs commensurate to a star of her stature. I also want to say, shout out to Richard, because of all the people that put USC number one in the country, Richard Hall, in the
power rankings. We were in the chat. I'll admit it. I was in the chat, like, because look, USC doing it once is a fluke. What you did tonight is completely different.
Yes, and we'll call it. Okay,
hey,
we're not moonwalking comments. We are not moonwalking comments.
No, I said it, thing. And I meant it.
Yes. Here's the thing. When it comes to USC, it was very reasonable to ask, is the makeup of this team from a schematic standpoint enough that you can rely on Juju Watkins to be the engine that wins and loses you games deep into March and eventually into April? It has been proven today that A, yes, but B, that Kiki Iriafen is just as much a part of this, even though she has gotten a lot of flack this year for the statistics and the counting numbers being empty calories. They're not. They really are not. She has shown up in games when they have absolutely needed a second star to be the player that they require to put them over the top. She's that player right there. Yeah. So I'm really impressed with SC on a number of levels here, just because I think first and foremost, you get the Juju performance. Yep. But you also get a Talia performance. And a Kiki performance.
Yes.
And that was the thing that was concerning at the beginning with USC, was how are all the pieces going to work together? Is Talia a legitimate point guard option for them? Is this team too dependent on Juju's ability to get them out of jams? Is Kiki's finishing around the rim a concern? And when you looked at UCLA and how they were basically blasting every team out of existence throughout the entirety of the year, you would look at the system versus the star. And we've seen in past years that the system tends to beat the star. This is one of the rare cases where there is a star that can supersede a system. And we don't get a lot of that very often. And it's fair to come at us and say, you were ready to walk away from USC. You were ready to walk away from Juju. You were ready to just, write them off completely after that loss against Iowa. I think that's a completely reasonable thing to dunk on us now for. Because at the end of the day, our ability to analyze the game is not dependent on us being right all the time. This is ball. We are going to get shit wrong. And it is pretty obvious we got SC's ceiling wrong. And that's fine. That's why we play the games. That's why we talk about the games, is to be proven right or wrong and talk about how. And so I want to give a shout to Lindsay Gottlieb because I think she's taken a lot of shit for the Lindsay side stuff. And at times that seemed understandable. I think there is an underrated component here to being able to take a superstar and a supporting cast of players, including one WNBA lottery pick, and making them all work in this way. It could have been very easy for all of this stuff to fall apart, especially after a loss like that Iowa loss. And instead, you come together, even after wins that look a little sus, you manage to keep people involved, and then you end up beating your main in-town rival twice to win a Big Ten regular season championship after you won the last Pac-12 championship.
Yes.
So major kudos to USC. They proved they're the number one team in the country. They are on that tier, I think, with UConn. After this, I'm comfortable saying those two teams are my national title contenders at this very moment. Okay. And UCLA has some pretty substantial questions to be answered about what your ability is to beat those teams down the stretch in the clutch when it matters the absolute most. The question with Corey Close teams has always been, how do you handle pressure? Like this has been a discussion in Pac-12 land for a long time. I have had Pac-12 coaches in Vegas in past years tell me that the concern with UCLA is always what happens when they get in the clutch. And this is the first game where this iteration of UCLA has made me feel that they are the UCLA teams of old. And the issue at hand is that there are no excuses this year. The talent is so good for UCLA. You got to show me that.
The deepest team in the nation.
And USC might just be a really bad matchup for UCLA. That very well could be the case here because we could see them have a dominant March. Jason Benetti was on the broadcast talking about the Ryan Day, Ohio State, Michigan comparisons. I don't necessarily know if it's that because UCLA talent for talent is equal to USC, whereas Ohio State was buying away on a talent perspective, the best team in college football. It is just fascinating to me to watch a star beat a system because we've gotten very used to in women's college basketball systems beating stars. In college basketball in general, men's and women's systems beat stars typically. This is a star leading over a system. That is impressive as hell, and that is my ISO. No, I'm not nay-naying because your boy was wrong. And you know what? We're sometimes going to be wrong, and that's okay. Take your dunks. I'm here for it. You know that gif? You know that gif of the guy in the wrestling ring holding his hands up?
All the trash, the trash and the chairs get thrown in.
At me right now. That's what I'm here for the next 30 seconds until I continue to have my Saturday night. But yeah, I mean, SC and UConn feel like the two teams that to me are playing the best basketball in the country right now. I can't look away from that UConn win over South Carolina, even if it's not the South Carolina that we are typically accustomed to. But I'm a big believer in Sarah Strong. I'm a big believer in AZ Fudd's health. And on the other side of that, I'm a huge believer in USC. They have made me a believer. And that is what you need for a team to win at this point in the year, is a team to make you believe that they have national championship potential. USC, national championship potential. These two games have proven that. And they're an easy number one seed in this NCAA tournament. And UCLA, man, I mean, more questions than answers at this point in the year. Yeah. And that's a thing that is worth being a teensy-weensy bit nervous over. But no matter what, the No Cap Space agenda wins. I graduated from Scarsdale High School in 2012. Shout out to Lindsay Gottlieb, Scarsdale High School, class of, I believe, 2001. They only breed champions in Westchester County.
There you go. That is, and shout out to the friends of the No Cat Space, Talia and Kiki. Great games tonight. Great games tonight.
Shouts to Liam, the live.
And shout out to Liam. And shout out to Liam.
And shout outs to our wives. I will see you later.
All right. What an ISO. What an incredible ISO from Andrew. Look, I'm here for all it takes. Like, let's talk. Chat. Just to kind of let it fly as I'm kind of reading the chat here. What Juju Watkins has done to UCLA this season, y'all. First off, let's go and National Player of the Year race. Let's go and wrap that up. Congratulations, Juju Watkins. I will go ahead and hand deliver it. When you want to talk about trajectory and peaking at the right time, USC and really UConn are the only two teams that are doing it. The only two teams that are doing it as we head into the postseason right now. I loved this performance from USC. Obviously, what Juju does goes with kind of without saying, right? Ridiculous. But I thought that they had the healthiest diet of shots potentially that they've had all season. When it came to the balance that they had. You look at the three-point shooting, right? It's crazy what a couple threes going in will do for you. And I'm not even talking about Juju. I'm talking about all the others, right? Whether it's the freshman off the bench, whether it's Talia, it's just a couple threes. Just a couple threes. And I'll tell you right now, when Juju's hitting the three, I don't know what you're supposed to do. Because, if you want Juju to take a shot, and I'm not saying that Juju's a bad three-point shooter by any means, so don't get it twisted here. But if you are like, Juju Watkins is going to take a shot, what shot do I want her taking? It's three. She's not some incredibly knockdown three-point shooter. I think she's around 33% on the season, something around those lines. It's not bad. But in comparison to her mid-range and to her finishing, you'll take that. And so I'm not even sure UCLA would be incredibly disappointed by the shot chart of Juju Watkins, especially early on in this game. But it didn't matter because she's making them. And when Juju Watkins is making threes, I don't know what you're supposed to do. Pray, beg. I don't know. It felt like UCLA could have done more when it came to just throwing bodies and forcing Juju Watkins to get the ball out of her hands. And I felt like we didn't really see much of an adjustment on that. And we saw a couple blitzes in the second half, a little bit here and there. But it felt like there wasn't much of a pivot. And see, going into these games, and why I was confident in UCLA winning this game is because I just continuously felt that UCLA just had more variables, had more pivots, had more adjustments in just available to them. I just feel like they have better depth in that way. And USC is just young. USC hasn't really been heavy on the team aspect. It's been so Juju heavy that I felt that it was possible for UCLA just to find a way in the rematch. You watch the film of the first game and you find a way, and they didn't. And that is incredibly worrisome because every sign on paper points to them having the ability to do so. But again, I was there when UCLA beat South Carolina, and watching that game, the thing that I took away from it, I've mentioned this a couple times now, but the gravity that Lauren Betts creates, right? Whenever she just has the ball in her hands, even when she was getting the ball at the free throw line, and the playmaking and the way that people were cutting and everything off of her just having the ball in her hands, the gravity in that game against South Carolina, even though the stats weren't crazy, is what won them that game. That gravity has not been felt. And I think it's partially in these USC matchups. I feel like that's partially where she's catching the ball. It's the three ball not really falling and not really being as threatening as in comparison to that South Carolina game where London Jones just went stupid. But it's worrisome. It's worrisome. And I saw this question. Hold on. This question here about Notre Dame. One, I saw we hadn't mentioned it. We talked about it on the podcast. I wasn't on there, but the weekly podcast, nocastspacewb.com, ball up top. You can go check it out there. But it's well, just in general right now with like Notre Dame, UCLA, Texas on the offensive side, even though they haven't won or haven't lost, excuse me. Like there's a lot of questions about just the way offenses are operating right now. And if you're entering March with questions, that's a problem. And more so not entering with questions, but the fact that you're actively discovering these questions for the first time. That's a problem. That's a problem. I mean, just kind of scanning the box score here. Andrew kind of mentioned it, but Kiki in that second half, and several others as well. But I want to kind of highlight Kiki in this because Juju went crazy in the first half, especially, and not that she kind of slowed up in the second half, and yet USC didn't falter. And a big part of that was Kiki. There were several others that got involved with that. And also the fact that the foul trouble for USC, the foul differential was what? It was 23-12. The free throws were 12-26. Like, these are things that initially when I think about USC would just frankly cause them to lose games. If Juju slows up or if just players get into foul trouble and you're forcing other players to play. And that hasn't happened. So frankly, all my questions about USC are actively being answered in real time. And I don't know what exactly has flipped in these UCLA games. But I'm telling you, if this is how they're coming for March Madness, I'll see them in Tampa Bay. I'll be there. Like, I'll see them in Tampa Bay at the Final Four. I am just so incredibly impressed. And I think a big thing here is that a lot of it for USC starts on the defense side of the ball, right? I mean, the way that Kennedy Smith is a real deal basketball player, y'all. I mean, the struggle that she's caused for Kiki Rice throughout these games, like just accepting those matchups. There's a couple of plays where she's on a bigger player like a Janiah Barker and she holds her own. Like, I am such a Kennedy Smith fan, and the way that she can impact the defensive side of the ball already is so incredibly important because it allows Juju Watkins to roam a bit more and play help side, whether it be with steals or with blocks, but also you're not forcing Juju Watkins to guard the best perimeter player, which Juju Watkins is very capable of doing. So you have two defenders that are actively able to go and guard the other team's best player on the perimeter. And then you're having bigs like Rhea Marshall step up down low. You're having bigs like Clarice Ucla stepping up down low with Lauren Betts. Like, the foundation is defense. As incredible as the offense has been with Juju Watkins, she's been incredible. It's the defense. That is the foundation of this USC success. And that is encouraging because that travels in March. You don't have a bad shooting night on defense. And the way that they have been able to contain Lauren Betts, who is absolutely an incredible player, but the way that they have been able just to limit the overall impact on the game as a whole, both in the stats, and again, like I mentioned, the South Carolina game, it wasn't crazy stats, but the impact was felt. You really haven't felt that impact from Lauren Betts. And to see at times, like there was a time in the third quarter, and to kind of talk about the coaching aspect of this, where UCLA is making a push, and Lauren Betts and Kiki Rice are both on the bench at the same time. And to me, that's inexcusable. Like, there's no way. There's no way you can have that. Not both. Not at the same time. There's no way you can have that. Goodness, man. I mean, and I want to hear y'all's comments as well. So, like, if there's parts that we haven't hit on yet, lob them up. I'm here. But there's one part I want to talk about as well. Can we talk about Juju Watkins and the energy that she had tonight? You want to talk about taking the game personal and, like, this being a rivalry game. When she checks out of that game and starts talking to what I believe was the student section of UCLA, who had chanted airball at her in like the second half when she had already been kind of cooking. And she throws the fours down. She looks at him and goes, I mean, straight into the crowd? Come on, man. That means something to me, man. Look, the stands of the camera. When have we like Juju is, generally speaking, a nonchalant player when it comes to the attitude aspect and the personality. Like, she is more of a nonchalant player. Not tonight. And these UCLA games, like, she understands the gravity of running LA. And folks, Juju Watkins runs LA. Like, if this, like, I don't know if it really was just the LA factor here, or if it's just a general switch that's been flipped. I mean, I certainly feel like the rivalry game amplifies it. But if this is the energy that Juju Watkins brings to March Madness and the postseason tournament in Indianapolis for the Big Ten, goodness gracious, yo. Like, I mean, I was just so, like, I stood up and I got hyped. Because, yes, turn up. Nobody can stop you. And like, those are moments that aren't going to soon leave my memory of Juju Watkins talking cash shit. Cash shit. There's the only way to put it. She was talking cash shit. I mean, I'm interested from y'all, though. I see this comment here. Didn't change or adjust their gameplay from the first game. What does UCLA do? I'm interested in what y'all are thinking here, because there's a very, very real chance that we see this rematch in Indianapolis at the Big Ten tournament. If you are Corey Close and UCLA, what do you do? What do you do? And while I wait for those comments, just so y'all know, post-game press conferences are on the way as Greer has boots on the ground in Pauley Pavilion right now. So be on the lookout. So if you're waiting to hear on Corey Close's answer to that question, it's on the way. Okay, let's look. You needs to be way more aggressive in doubling Juju. I agree. I think at this point, you have to, you can't let Juju Watkins get 30, which is easier said than done, right? But like, if I'm UCLA, I am doing anything I possibly can to not even let her have the ball in her hands enough to get 30. And again, we saw it a couple plays here and there. But like the blitzes and just forcing her to pass the ball. Because to your point, like her passing game, I thought was actually really solid tonight. Generally speaking, I mean, she only had 2 turnovers, and with the amount that she has the ball in her hands, I thought she was solid, and it's an improving aspect of her game. But if you want to nitpick Juju Watkins, I feel like that's probably where it's at, is the playmaking in that way. And also just USC as a team, the system hasn't really like relied on that in that way. So like if you're forced to do that in a major game, like it's way better than letting her shoot 22 shots and feel good about those shots. I like this one. Pray. Good idea. Having Janiyah guarding Juju and going under screens was wild. Again, this one is because again, I think to a point you're okay with Juju taking threes if she's going to be taking shots, but ultimately it's still not enough pressure. Not in that way. So I agree with you in that. Like it didn't work out. I kind of saw the vision, but ultimately it wasn't enough in that way. It wasn't enough pressure on the shots. and yeah, it didn't work out in the way that they needed to. Let's see. You said they were just spamming post ups and forcing it. I mean, when you have Lauren Betts, it's a hard line to balance, and that helps when threes are falling, right? You go 5 for 20 from 3 tonight. You probably start feeling the need to try and force it in that way. Tyler, what do you think of this version of USC and UConn playing down the stretch? Who do you think taking that rematch if they meet up in the dance? Goodness, man, I don't know. Honestly, to me, that game, I might say UConn. But goodness, that's close. My knee-jerk reaction was UConn, and that's purely because I think that I feel like it would come down to Sarah Strong in that game, and you might be able to rely on what she's doing. And if AZ Fudd is playing like a third star, like we've seen, it's just about just kind of matching production in that way, which USC can certainly do. I think I would go UConn. But goodness, I don't know. Like that's close. I can easily make the argument for USC as well, but my knee-jerk reaction is UConn on that. But I think here's where I struggle with USC just a little bit. Is I am from a USC perspective, you are very happy that you're picking at the right time. 100%. But like you haven't repped this. Like what we saw tonight has not been repped in this way. And so like that's I think where my nerves are a little bit of like, how do you make sure you don't devolve back into some of the things that cause worries at different times during the season? But if it's this USC, I'm not sure anybody can beat them. Like I'm not sure if anybody can beat them. Let's see. Kiki's way better than Sarah. AZ's a difference maker, but a TVO show that's a part of USC takes it easy. I mean, I think AZ would be the difference maker. I think it's whoever can find a third person in that. I wouldn't say Kiki is way better than Sarah. At least not like in production this season. Like Sarah has been really, really good. And I think like either one of them can be better than the other on any given night, frankly, because I think Sarah's phenomenal. I think Kiki's phenomenal. So I wouldn't say like it's way better, but I do think it would ultimately come down to the third. And right now, AZ has shown, I mean, that South Carolina game was ridiculous. I mean, listen, if we're just running through it, South Carolina versus USC, when they're both playing to their strengths, I think South Carolina is very comfortable with kind of what we're talking about with UCLA, how you'd want to switch it up and like try and play full court and try and just like be very in tune defensively. That is something that, I mean, frankly, South Carolina is very comfortable doing. It has done against teams. And so like I could see that causing troubles, but I definitely think USC is the better team currently. I don't think that's any question. But when it comes to just play style and like, I mean, you're a Don Staley team, you're playing defense, right? And so I'd be interested in knowing what the scheme is in that type of game. But I mean, this is a good point. Like the only players that have really been able to, you can't put a small guard on Juju. You can't put a big like Janiah Barker on Juju. You have to have a very certain kind of archetype to really kind of bother Juju. That's a mix of both. Like Sonia Citron is the example to me. And she's also happens to be one of the best defenders in the entire nation, right? And is going to be a very good WNBA defender and player. You know what I mean? So like those aren't frequent in that way. But goodness, y'all. I mean, Juju Watkins actually played of the year. USC is probably the number one team in the nation. Again, there's basketball left to be played, right, with the tournaments and everything. But right now, I mean, UConn, I think UConn fans would have the argument of saying, like, you know, their team's hotter right now. But frankly, you know, it's not going to be the Big East tournament is not the Big Ten tournament this year. And so we're going to, if USC goes and wins the Big Ten tournament, I mean, I don't think it's a question about who the national championship favorites are at that point. But because that's going to be a brutal tournament. But ultimately, we should be seeing USC and UConn both in Tampa Bay. All signs point to that right now. And yeah, I mean, if Juju and Kiki can keep clicking, that's always been the thing for me. That's always been the thing for me. Is this USC team is good enough? Like, the talent is phenomenal. Like, Kiki Arielfin is an All-American. Juju Watkins is the best player in the country. There was only one team that had 2 preseason All-Americans, and that's USC, and rightfully so. It just hasn't really clicked. It just hasn't really clicked. But now it has, and now it's starting to, and it's come late in the game. And for me, that has its different type of worries. But ultimately, if it's clicked, it's clicked. And everyone else in the nation should be terrified if that's the case. Because they absolutely can win the national championship. There's no question about that. I see here, like, Bree Hall for South Carolina and Malaysia. Like, those. I mean, absolutely. That's who would be on Juju in that case. And, like, South Carolina fans, like, should rightfully feel solid about that. But again, I talked about it when the top 16 got revealed, and that was before being provided this new information of this game. But, like, I still think it holds true that, like, there's some defenses, as I kind of seen in the chat, like, there's certain matchups for USC that can be rough. Just like this might be a matchup for UCLA that's just rough, right? But man, I mean, the matchups are the matchups. I still think it's fair to be worried about those defensive teams if you match up with USC. But only one team in this country has Juju Watkins. And as Andrew mentioned, we haven't seen very many players beat the systems. And that doesn't happen in college basketball. But Juju Watkins has never happened in college basketball. Not like this. Like, there's only been one player that's been able to beat some systems. And that was Caitlin Clark. And, like, obviously, I mean, Juju is that caliber of player, like, in that echelon right now. Especially, you know, in comparison to, you know, it's very interesting. Like, this is a great, with that Caitlin Clark thing in mind. That West Virginia game for Iowa was worrisome. Like, I remember we talked about it last year when it was happening. We were previewing, like, this is a game where we were like, this could catch Iowa. And I think that there's a very real, like, that is the mindset that I'm in. Like, USC that is a fantastic comparison to what I'll kind of be looking for in terms of when we see the tournament, when we see the bracket, and you know, we'll see who USC matches up with. Tyler, we presume the moment if we say because UConn had one big non-conference win but lost the other 3. UCLA had their hat on game and now look. I mean, look, I think the Big Ten tournament is going to tell us a lot, you know, with some of the other teams, if they can beat them. And then, I mean, there's a very real chance that we end up looking back on this UCLA team and being like, yeah, you know, we got tricked, you know, in the sense of, like, the national content, like, we'll have to see. Or like, we don't know this yet. So, like, there's not a like, could it be USC is a terrible matchup? Could it be UCLA is not as good as we thought they were? Like, we are going to find out. So, like, I think there's a very real chance of that being a very fair take in that. Look, this is where I'm gonna end it right here to preview because I gotta go to bed. But conference tournament's about to be nuts, y'all. Like, insane nuts. This is gonna be crazy. I can't wait. We're gonna be live for all of it. I mean, SEC, ACC, Big Ten. Like we're all those there. We're talking about, and we're gonna be tapped into. We're gonna be tapped in all across the board. And for anyone that is new here and wasn't around for last March Madness, we are gonna be live. Probably every day of March Madness. Whether it be for major games, whether it be for night recap, like we're gonna be here. So No Cap Space is the place to be for your March Madness coverage. Again, don't get ready for it. Home field, No Cap 15. Use your code. And also, we are creeping up on 3,000 subscribers here on the YouTube. So if you're not subscribed, subscribe. Make sure you turn notifications on so you're notified whenever we go live. Also, NoCapSpaceWBB.com. Our paid subscriber tier is now out. That is how you help support us, upgrade our sets here, get to these games, travel. We're we're balling on a budget. We made this from scratch. We just love women's basketball and we want to bring you the best coverage we possibly can, even when we're wrong. And that's okay too, because we're gonna be wrong. That's okay too. But all your support means a ton. You can go get a free trial on NoCapSpaceWBB.com. Plus, all of our normal free content is still there. There's so much stuff on the website, the podcast, the print stuff, so much stuff to check out. So make sure you're tapped in across the board with No Cap Space. We had a great time in our subscriber chat talking the game today. I was in there live chatting with everyone. So if you want to come chat with others during the game, have a place for the ball knowers, that is the place to be. Subscribe here on YouTube, like, share, all of that, and I'll see you next time.